Hello YouTube and welcome to part 6 of my jet ski update series. In today's video I'm going to show you guys fiberglass repair from the perspective of a beginner. Channels like Boatworks Today and some others do excellent videos on expert fiberglass repair. One thing that I've learned after watching those videos and attempting to do some fiberglass repair on my jet ski is that things don't always go exactly to plan. If you have to do fiberglass repairs, I definitely suggest you go and check out Boatworks Today. What I'm going to do is show you what happens when you take what you've learned from videos like that and try to apply them as a beginner. This video is going to be a little bit different than the other videos in my series. I'm going to leave the clips run a little bit longer uncut. You're going to hear me murmuring to myself and saying all kinds of nonsense. I've decided to do this because I wanted to give you guys a realistic view of what it takes to actually do fiberglass repair. The content of this video will be focused mostly on getting to the point where you have your matting and cloth cut out to size. I'll show you a few tricks along the way that I've learned and hopefully it helps somebody. And in the next video of this series I will show you guys applying the epoxy and actually getting the chop strand and cloth installed. I thought I would try to film a little bit of what I'm doing now. I'm down to only having a few patches left. I've got to do this one here. This one here. Alright, so I've been busy doing some fiberglassing work. I think the last thing I filmed was this. I got a bunch of stuff done along here. Got this piece done. Got this done. And a patch up here done. I still have a big patch here to do, a big patch there. I don't know if I filmed doing that, but I got this done. I still have a big one here, so I've got 1, 2, 3 fairly large patches to do, and then I've got a hole for the strap. I've already done the hole for the strap here. And then I've got some small stuff. I've got a little one here, a little one here, a little one here. I did these earlier today too. Kind of forgot about them, but it looks like they turned out. These were cracked and I filled them. I did this one a few days ago. That was cracked as well. I'm not sure what this thing is for. I think maybe on a different year or a different model they had the steering cable or 2 cables for the, I don't know. Anyway, I don't like that there's this here. I don't like that that's there. And I don't like this thing either. So I think I'm going to shave these off. It'll make it cleaner. And yeah, I'm in the middle of fiberglassing, so why not? I thought I would try to film a little bit of what I'm doing now. I'm down to only having a few patches left. I've got to do this one here, this one here, and then one up in the nose right there. I'm going to save that one, I think, for another time. And right now I might try laying both of these. I've got another couple of spots, just little holes. So far, I've done this one, the nose piece, which is kind of one part patch comes to here, and then continues all the way through the bottom of the hull there. I patched that hole, which was for a handle, so there's a matching one on the other side that I also patched. On the outside, a strap or a handle goes from here around to the other side of the jet ski, and I'm eliminating that. We had a bilge pump hole that was here. I plugged that. We had an extra steering cable or something. I plugged that hole. We had some damage here, which I repaired, and it comes all the way back along here. I still have to do this stuff here, but I'm not going to use any fiberglass to fill it. There was a bad crack here. I repaired that. And then
There's one here, and one here.
Now you guys are up to date on my progress. Let's get to actually making some patterns and cutting out some cloth.
So the first thing I like to do is just get a rough idea of the size of patch. And I think West Systems and a bunch of other people, but West Systems has a bunch of videos where they show you how to use plastic to do this. So what I generally do, I've got this house wrap or vapor barrier plastic. I like to push it in and kind of get an idea of how big of a piece I'm going to need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it off there and then put it back in and then do the final mark. So one thing I've learned is that if you start out with a real big piece, you're going to have a hard time not having a lot of wrinkles and stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark off a little bit bigger than the area. And I'll cut that out and then I'll fit it back in. Okay, so now that I have it cut out to that shape, it fits in a little bit better now. You can see it still doesn't fit perfectly. But now what I like to do is outline the area where I've actually done my sanding, and come to think of it, I think I will remake the pattern so that it actually goes to this edge. I'm going to mark along the edge where it will be sanded or where I've sanded. There we go. So instead of coming down across here, I'm just going to go right over like that. So cutting the piece out like this is going to do a couple of things. And this is one thing that I've learned quickly, is that when you're laying in the fiberglass and cutting out the shape of the fiberglass, you want to try to cut out shapes that are going to end up being easy to work with and easy to sand afterwards. So if I were to just come down across like this, it would mean that I have kind of a compound area to sand. This is concaved this way and this way, so it's rounded in around this way and this way. So if I just make the piece of fiberglass go up along there, then I'll have to taper it in on the top edge, but it'll just meet along this seam there. So it'll make that a little bit easier for me. Okay, so I spent 5 or 10 minutes sanding and cutting my pattern so that it's more exact. You want to work out some of the finer details. With this pattern, my main concern is getting close to the edge here, or getting close to this brace. And the reason for that is if I have a gap, there's going to be a place that a void then in between there, and it's just going to be awkward to work with. So my pattern wants to sit right in there like that. This area here doesn't matter too much to me. What I might do is just draw an extra little piece on the fiberglass before I cut it out. But everything else works good, so now I'm going to transfer this to a piece of fiberglass mat. All right, I did just say mat, but I meant cloth. So I'm going to trace this out on some cloth, and I'm going to make a little extra bulge here, just so that it fits. One thing that I've learned working with fiberglass is that it's not an exact science, it's more of an art form. You don't want to be too fussy about cutting exact shapes. You're going to end up having to do you're going to end up having to sand some down the road anyway, so it doesn't matter if it's not exact. In some cases, depending on the shape of the patch and what sort of curves you're going around, it does pay to make sure that you cut it out accurately, and also sometimes it helps to cut a lot of reliefs or reliefs in strategic areas so that you don't get a lot of wrinkles. So I'm going to finish cutting this out because I can't do it one-handed. So there I have that piece laid in. As you can see, it fits quite well, sits down nice, there's no wrinkles. I'm going to use 2 pieces of cloth and then probably 3 pieces of matting. So chop strand. So I'm going to use another piece of this and then probably a thin piece of chop strand mat. I don't know what weight it is, but fairly thin stuff. And then a couple of layers of this thicker stuff. I thought I would point out one more thing that I find myself doing that I think is fairly handy, or a nice trick. There's always parts in the pattern. I should say not always. Let me restart this lesson. So if you have a patch that you're doing and it's a circle, then you make a smaller circle and you make a smaller circle. You do that a few times and basically all the pieces are the same shape, and that's not, you end up basically filling the hole as you go, and that's perfectly fine. But as you can see with this hole, I actually have a line that's deeper through the center section here, and then also a line that's deeper through there. And what I like to do is actually mark those areas. I did that on this piece and on this piece as well. I'm editing my video and I'm not sure that it's perfectly clear what I was trying to say, so I'm going to go over that and explain to you guys in a little bit more detail. We have the outside of our patch area that is shaped, we'll say something like this, and the deep part of the trench is like this, and then it comes up like this. When I'm cutting out my material, I want each patch to be a little bit smaller than the previous one. So my first one will be along here. My second one would be here, my third one here, fourth one here, fifth one here. The problem is, if you look at the distance between here and the distance between here, it's a lot less. So what's going to happen is if I keep cutting back a 1/4 inch here, I'll only get 2 patches in before I end up not putting any material into this deep part of the groove. So when I cut out the material, I cut out my first shape, like the outside. When I cut out my second piece, I cut back a 1/4 inch here, but on the end, I basically cut it the same size, and I go back to a 1/4 inch. Then when I cut at the tip, I cut about the same size, and then 1/4 inch down here. Oops, yeah. And then I keep doing that same thing. All right, so in the end, this is what I've done. I've got my first one, which is cloth. Second one is a thin layer of chop strand matting, which is almost exactly the same size as the first one. The third one is another layer of cloth, which is about a 1/4 inch smaller, except for this section and this. And this is exact same because I want to lay it against that bridge or support or whatever I showed you. And then I've got a fourth one, again, that lays against there. And then I've got the fifth one. So I wasn't going to do a sixth one. This isn't at all cosmetic repair, it's structural, and this stuff is going to be a lot strong. But I figured what I'd do to take up a little bit of space, there's going to be a bit of a dip here. So I cut a thick piece of the chop strand matting, and I'm going to lay that in there like that. And that should do it. I've never done one this way before, but it's a little bit of a struggle, so I thought I'd record it. actually tape the plastic in place. And I think what's going to end up happening is I'm going to make this in at least 2 pieces. Maybe not. It might work. But I'm going to have to do a relief cut, at least 1 relief cut along here. So this won't fold in. So what I'm going to do is get my marker and try to mark the bottom of that, and then up. And then I'll pull this out. Cut that. Now this piece lays in there nice. This piece will probably need at least 1 relief cut. I think the smartest place to do this one would be through the bottom area here. So what I'll probably do is end up making this in kind of 2 pieces. So what I'll do is I'll make this piece, and then I'll make a little patch to put down in the corner. Let's see if this is going to work. Yeah, okay. So now this doesn't actually need to come all the way up to the top here, so I'm going to mark this so that it comes to here, and then mark this so that it comes to here. And we'll take that out and cut it, and cut a piece of cloth to that size and see if it fits in. Okay, so I have the cloth cut, or the first piece of cloth cut, and we'll see. Put that down in there. And it looks like that will work just fine. So what I'll do is I'll cut out a couple of pieces of cloth like this, and also a couple of pieces of mat. Basically follow the same process that I did with the other side. You take the marker and mark out the area where it's actually all the way through. And I know that that part needs to be thicker than the rest. For this piece, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 layers. And so, as you can see, the first 2 are almost exactly the same size. And then the third one, a little bit smaller. Basically what I'm trying to accomplish here is get a good bonding surface along here and this back edge that we can't see, so that it has lots of good material to attach to. And so yeah, and this one and these 2. The last one I made basically just to fill up volume, so it's going to be jammed down in there and just kind of cover over the green patch there. So now I've got to mix up my epoxy. First, before I mix up my epoxy, I'm going to wipe this down thoroughly with acetone and then get my paintbrush ready, get my stir cups ready, make sure that I have everything good to go, and that will give the acetone time to flash off, and then I'll mix up the epoxy and get to putting it on.
Well, that just about does it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. In the next video in this series, I will be mixing up the epoxy, applying it, and getting our fiberglass repair completed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.